Alright, this is an overview of the design editor for Autobidder, so I'm just going to dive right into it. On the design page, you're going to have two different sections. You've got the components and then you've got themes. Themes may be useful when you're first setting it up, but once you start editing your design and changing the elements itself, this will become less useful because you're going to want to integrate or make it look more like your business colors. Then you get down here, you're going to have the section to set the colors, and then your typography, your titles and headings, and then your question inputs, okay? Quick overview. Now let's go ahead and hop into components and start showing you how the design editor works. So the first section you're going to see, I'm just going to go through this step by step and show you every single component and how it affects the design. So the first thing you see here is the service selector. This is the very first thing customers see besides the video. In fact, I should turn that off. I'll probably turn that off just to make it a little bit easier for you to see, but this is the first thing you're going to see, right? You've got the color, you've got the border, you've got a shadow, you've got the icon. Now the icon, we're not going to cover that because that's covered when you set up your services. You assign an icon to the service. It's not assigned here. But you can see here I've got a blue border. It turns green when I select it, and then the background goes from white to blue. Okay, so let's go ahead and make some changes and then just show you what that looks like. So we're going to open the service card selector, and you can see here it's just got some default settings. I'm going to go ahead and change the active background color to, I'm going to change it to something totally different. And I was playing with the design editor, which is why it looks different at the moment, or the theme setter. Let's just make it like a red color. This isn't going to be permanent. Active border color, we'll make it blue. I'll leave the hover how it is. Text, I'll leave that how it is. Let's see here. Okay, and let's make the default border color lighter, and let's also make the background a little bit lighter too. Maybe we'll make it like dark red border or something like that, just so that you can clearly see the changes. All right, so we save it. We're going to head back over. All right, and you're going to see those changes. So now you can see that it's red. You can see how this would obviously play in if your business colors are red or they're green or blue or whatever. You would obviously want to change that to make the background looks. All right, so that was the service selector. Now that's the basics. Of course, you can play around with it and dive in a little bit deeper. I also have an editor open up inside the website editor as well, because this is where it's really important. You really want it to look like it's native to your website. A lot of tools like this, similar, like tools that are similar to Autobidder, they work great functionally, but the design kind of lacks a lot. A lot of times you can just tell that it doesn't belong there, or it's not one with the website. It looks like it's just embedded on the site. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. It just doesn't look as good. And I believe that looks do matter in this marketing field. Anyways, here's what it looks like on a website. Now let's head back over and dive into the next one. You've got the text input fields. So this is where people are going to enter, like if you ask for square footage or like any base number, that they're going to set that here. So I didn't actually get a chance to show you what this would look like, but you can see the example here. Let's make the border a bit thinner. Let's make it a bit wider just for fun. Let's give it a nice shadow. And then let's lighten that border up a little bit. So it looks kind of nice. All right, now let's go click save. And then let's go see if we can find a question that has, I think, house washing, maybe. Okay. Yep, and now you can see the input field that we just set is right here. And I think I actually need to refresh this in order to see the border updates. Go back to house washing, select, okay. Now you can see the updates that I made are live. It's a little bit wider. The border's a little bit thinner. All right, now let's dive into the next one. The next one I think will be drop down. So you can see this, how this drop down looks right now. It's got a gray border, a gray background. Let's try to make it look similar to this one with the green, just to make it look uniform. Okay, drop down menus. Let's keep the text input field open. And then the nice thing is you can, if you want it to be exactly the same color, you can just copy the hex code, paste it in. Oops, I accidentally hit copy again. Copy, and down here, paste. And then the same thing with the background, copy, paste, and then the border width I believe is about 1 pixel, and then the height is 64 pixels. So we'll just increase this up to 64. And then let's add a little bit of a shadow to it. And then we'll go ahead and click save, and now I'll go show you that one. Again, we'll select house wash, and you can see the design of that input field is now basically the same as the other one. Okay, now we're moving on to the multiple choice inputs. You can see these sort of have a gray border with it turns gray when you select it. So since we're going with this green theme, maybe we'll want to make that similar colored theme. And that's generally how you're going to want to do it. You don't want to have a bunch of different colors. That just doesn't look good. You kind of want it to have, a theme, similar colors throughout each of these fields. So now let's go to the border color. Let's make that, accidentally hit another pound sign. Okay. Now let's go ahead and grab the background. This is going to be the default background. And then we want to go change the selected background, and that's actually just active background is what that's called. And let's make this the color of the border, because I kind of like the way that looks. Okay. Active border. Maybe we'll just make that the same, just for simplicity's sake. Let's head back up and see how that looks. All right, and now you see we've got the input. We've got the multiple choice, kind of matching that same color scheme, right? Moving on, we've got the pricing display. I think I'll actually show you the question cards and buttons first, because the pricing display is at the very end. So let's do the question card. You can see that it's got this blue border with a light blue background, and that's basically this entire container that contains each of the questions. So let's go ahead and try just making the border a bit thinner. Maybe we can go no border, and then I actually kind of like how that looks. Maybe I'll lower the radius a bit, and now let's go check how that looks. Okay, and you can see the border is no longer there. It's still got that very light color, or excuse me, this is the background, my fault. You can see it's got that much lower border. Before it was much thicker, and it had that, it was dark blue. And in fact, it looks like it's putting one there by default. So if you want to totally get rid of that, let's just go ahead and make the border the same exact color as the background. And we'll go click save. We'll try that again. And now that little blue, dark blue border should be totally gone. As you can see here, there's no more border. All right. So now we've got the action buttons. So that's the blue button down at the bottom here. My screen recorder thing's kind of getting in the way, but let's move it over here. You can see we've got this blue button here. Of course, you may want that to kind of have a similar theme. So we could go kind of just do what we were doing earlier. Just make it, looks like that was that background color. And in fact, maybe I'll turn that red to green just to kind of keep it the same theme as the rest. So let's go ahead and put that in there. And then make the active background, and then come down here to the action button, and we'll make the action button also this green color. We can make it, you can make it wider or smaller if you want. Let's try making it a bit smaller. I usually just kind of leave the font, because I like to keep the font white generally, white or black for the most part. You can see this font's a little bit blue. I'll show you how to change that in just a second. All right, now let's go ahead and refresh it, and you'll see the updates to the button. Once you see the first couple how this works, you'll realize it's pretty easy actually. So now you see the button is green. All right, and I think I have the hover. Yeah, we'll have to update that hover, but it's not a huge deal at the moment. Again, you can change the text. I'm not going to worry too much about the text at the moment either. Okay, now we can head over to themes, And our primary text color, you can see, is that dark, or is that light blue. Let's just darken it up so you can see it better on the background. That light blue color kind of works well if you're using a dark background, but obviously we're not using a dark black background, so it it doesn't really stand out as well. So now that dark blue, you can kind of see it quite a bit better. Right here too, you can see that a lot better. And just all of the text input fields, it's just easier to see on a lighter background. All right. So that pretty much covers it for the most part. Now we can change the font as well. Here, let's go with a Georgia, make it large. Maybe we can make it semi-bold. And then for the question inputs, I'll also make it Georgia, because I believe Georgia, yeah, it's a different style, so you should be able to see the change. Change it, head back, refresh. All right, and now you can see the updated text inputs here. Let's go ahead and just select one. You can see how the font has updated now. And that pretty much covers the design editor. So hopefully that answers any questions you might have. If you have any more, please contact support, and I'll be happy to help. Have a great day. Bye-bye.